Well, welcome everyone. My name is Raymond Mudford. I get called other names, but I happen to be the Vice President of Grey Power here in Hamilton and also on the board of the Federation. But that's not the reason why we're here today. We're here to actually listen to our respective candidates who have a story to tell in a very short period of time. And just sort of the housekeeping, the toilets are out the main door and to the left. You can see the egress routes going out there and there, and over this side. Can you make sure your phones and other bits and pieces are turned off, please? We don't need to speak to anyone else. And one last thing, we need to respect the candidates. There are no questions from the floor. There are no interruptions during someone speaking, because that means we're not going to hear what they're saying. And us not hearing what they're saying really defeats the purpose of being here. The process today is each candidate initially will be given 5 minutes to inform us of their party's top 5 priorities. Now 5 minutes, as you know, is not very long. So again, give them respect, give them time to actually tell us those things. That will go for about an hour. The second part is I have some questions to ask. And depending on the time it takes to answer them by each of the candidates will depend on how many questions there are. They are short questions, so we don't get too involved in the complications of the answer. That's planned to go on until about 11:30. And then from 11:30 till 12, you'll all be given the opportunity to meet and greet with the candidates. They'll come down from their high tower up here and come down to us lower mortals down here, and you'll give you the opportunity to ask questions. But remember, many of you may want to speak to one person, so you need to be respectful of others who actually want to have a dialogue as well. So the candidates are actually organised in alphabetical order, because that was the only way I could think of doing it. And we'll start until we have from ACT, Susan Stevenson, from Labour, Myra Williamson, from National, Ryan Hamilton, New Zealand First, Kevin Stone, New Zealand Loyal, Tanya Barn, Republic of New Zealand Party, Jacobus Gielan, or Jack as he's known, the Opportunities Party, Dr. Naomi Pocock, and the Vision New Zealand, Lois Dorman. So I'd like to welcome you all here today, and thank you very much for being with us. The procedure as far as the 5 minutes is concerned, Mark, who's sitting over here, will actually give you all the 1 minute grace when it's about to all close. And then he will give you the final knock, just so we can manage the time with everyone equally. Okay?
Greetings, kia ora. It's lovely to be here. I really appreciate you coming out on a slightly chilly morning for this event this morning. My name is Susan Stevenson and I'm standing for the ACT Party in Hamilton West. I've lived here for 15 years. I currently run an education and a wellbeing business. My history, however, has been working in schools and education. I currently support 2 Ministry of Education contracts, and I really care about the quality of life. My husband's been a member of Grey Power for about 15 years, and he tells me you're a really good value. So I have some history on the history and the contributions of your organisation. Just a little bit about why I'm standing for ACT. I've really only come on as a member in the last few weeks, but I found total alignment with the principles of ACT. So ACT has 4 principles that guide all decision making and policy, and in any situation you look at, you can look at these principles and you can see the link to the decisions they will make. So the first principle is around individual freedom. ACT stands up for individuals' right to choose and to make determinations in their own life and for less government in our lives. We're all adults, we've had a huge history, and we know what works for us and our families and what doesn't. The second principle is around the personal responsibility. So ACT believes that people should grow up and take responsibility. While we definitely want to support people in need, the reality is we want to support people to be able to support themselves. And at the moment, when I go out and meet people in Hamilton West, I meet a lot of hard-working people who say, I can't take any more taxation. And I also meet a lot of people who are really having a hard time going, I can't afford the cost of living. And the other thing is, I can't stand being in a dependent situation. And at the moment, criminals are taking everything off me. So it's really tough out there. The third principle we stand for is supporting the environment and also the economy. If we don't keep our environment and our economy in good condition, really nothing else is possible. The fourth principle is around quality of life. We aspire and work towards and build policies that will support the quality of people's lives. And today I can tell you about the ACT policies that are especially relevant for you. You may have heard the media saying, ACT's going to take off the winter energy payment. They didn't, however, tell you that ACT wants to align the superannuation with the cost of living or pay increases, whichever is greater. So instead of every 3 years there being a bun fight over the level of superannuation and little trinkets being offered out to people, we think that you should have the security of knowing that when everybody else's income goes up or inflation goes up, you don't have to fight for it, it's automatically adjusted and you have that ongoing security and not lots and lots and lots of paper filling out and applications just to be able to live a life with dignity. Another one of our key policies is we want to support the Retirement Commission. However, we really want to target the work of the Retirement Commission. So one of the things we want the Retirement Commission to focus on is legislation and regulation to make sure things are fair for people, whether they're living in a retirement home or they're living in their own home. And so those things are critical to us. The other thing we want the Retirement Commission to do is to make sure people can get the support they need to stay in their own home. Two other policies we are very keen to bring about is we want you to be able to get the medications you need. At the moment, there's been a whole lot of core cold and flu medications that have been made off limit to people that used to be able to pop into the pharmacy and get, or your family members could have picked up for you, which have now been taken off the market because we were told they were being used to create methamphetamine. Interestingly, the medications have come off the list, but the meth production has gone up. So these are really important policies for us in supporting people. I was looking at the Grey Power values and principles, and I saw so much alignment because I think it is all about quality of life. Thank you for your time.
Kia ora everybody. My name is Myra Williamson. I am the Labour candidate for Hamilton West. I want to acknowledge the Labour candidate for Hamilton East, Georgie Dancy here. I want to acknowledge my campaign manager, Lynn Holder, and Sky Sloper, who are supporting me from Labour here today. And I want to thank Grey Power for the invitation and for hosting what's an excellent event. What I want to do is just introduce myself briefly and then speak to the 5 policies that I think are the most important ones, which I understand was the brief. So I was born in Hamilton and I was raised in Hamilton. I was born at Waikato Hospital, went to Jameson Kindergarten, across the road to Forest Lake, then to Maiwa Intermediate, and then I spent 4 years at Fraser High. Then I headed down to Dunedin to follow my sister, who was already there. I did 5 years in Dunedin. I graduated graduated with first class honours in law and a BA in politics. I came back up to Hamilton. I was admitted to the bar. I practiced law as a litigation lawyer at Stace Hammond Grace. Some of you might have contacts with that firm. And then once I had children, I had to give up practice, but I pivoted to academia. I then did a master's, graduated with first class honours in law at the University of Waikato, and then began a PhD. So I hold a PhD in international law. So then I was teaching at the university, I went overseas for a while, and then I came back. So that is all to say that most of my life has been spent learning, teaching or practicing law. The reason I'm standing for Labour is because I've always supported the Labour Party, as have my mum and dad. My dad was the son of a coal miner from Scotland, and he came here to make a better life for his family. My mum was from Northern Ireland, a big farming family in Dungannon, near Belfast. My mum was actually a member of Grey Power, and I remember her always talking to me about the magazine. I was actually reading the last issue. My mum died in June 2022, and the last issue was unopened on her reading stand. And so I picked it up, and I was reading it this morning, which was a bit of sweet experience, really. I have experienced ageing parents and all the challenges that go with that. My mum and dad both recently passed away. My mum died of pancreatic cancer in June 2022, and my dad just died this year in March. They both lived in their homes to the end of their lives. They didn't want to go into a retirement village, but they lived with dignity, and they were feisty and independent. And if I get in for Hamilton West, I am going to fight for older people so they can age in their homes with dignity and have proper care services coming into the house and have that properly funded if they choose to do that. But also, I would like them to have choices if they want to go and live in a retirement village. And on that point, Labour has instigated a reform of the retirement village sector. I'm going to touch briefly on our five most important policies. The first is cost of living. This government recognises that there is a global problem with inflation, and that has caused a cost of living crisis. We have put in place a range of measures, including a promise to take off GST from fruit and vegetables, but so far we have already done a number of things. Half price public transport for under 13s, free for under 13s, half price for under 25s. We've already put in place the winter energy payment, Labour initiative that probably no government will be able to get rid of, even if we are not successful in October. We have also taken the prescription fees off medicine, something that National went back and forth on. I really don't know their position, but over 1 million prescriptions have now been picked up from pharmacies free of charge, and we will maintain that. We have also increased the Working for Families package, another Labour initiative. We have increased benefits for superannuitants so that you all are receiving more income each week. In terms of housing, we have done a lot in the housing space. 1 in every 7 public houses in New Zealand was built by this Labour government, and we are committed to building more. We're going to build ourselves out of the housing crisis that unfortunately was created by a former government selling off our state houses. Our economy is in great shape. Please don't believe the misinformation you hear in the media. We have 0.9% growth in the quarter to June. Our economy is performing better than all our comparable economies. We have a AAA rating from Moody's, Standard & Poor's, and we have been told that it's an exemplary management by the IMF, not exactly a left-wing think tank. So what I want to say to you today is that you do have a choice in October, and the choice is about values. Do you want New Zealand to keep moving forward on a predictable and stable path? And do you want a government that's there for you when you have a problem or a catastrophe? Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Ryan Hamilton, the National Party candidate for Hamilton East. Apologies from Tama Pūtaka this morning. He's your candidate for Hamilton West. He's at a citizenship ceremony. Thank you, Ray, Jane, and the team of Grey Power for having us here. It's fantastic to be here. A bit about me very quickly. I've been in Hamilton since 1987, went to Frankton Primary School. Some of you may remember Don LaPrue was the principal back then, and had quite a key connection to the Frankton Rugby Club. I'm married to Marie, 23 years, and we've got 3 children here in Hamilton, 21, 18 and 17. So lots of challenges with teenagers and all the wonderful things that they bring. So just really quickly to recap, 4 years ago, government debt, $5 billion. 4 years later, where we are today, government debt, $100 billion. I know many of you will probably have come through a time where we're much more conservative with debt and money management, and we understand the need for investment, particularly when it's intergenerational. But what do we have to show for that debt today? Have we got better roading? Is our healthcare better? Are our A&E times faster? Are surgery times faster? Do you feel safer in the streets? Do you think law and order is well managed? Why don't we put some reforms into it? Let's reform our tertiary system. We call it Te Pukenga. How's that working out? What about Three Waters and ramming through co-governance under urgency? What about the RMA? There's a whole bunch of stuff happening, and it's just undermining the fabric of this community and this country we brought up in. So it's all very easy for me to point the finger, but what are we going to do about it? Well, National's developed a 100-point plan. All of our policies are wrapped up in it, and you can work through it. And it's not rocket science. There's actually a lot of common sense, pragmatic things through that. Let me start with the first one. The first priority is fixing the economy and getting us inflation back under control. So people's mortgage rates haven't ballooned by $400 to $2,000 a fortnight because of rapid interest rates. Yes, some of it's global, but our domestic spending has contributed incredibly towards that. So we want to do appropriate tax adjustments, so that means you get to keep more of the money you earn. We want to keep the Reserve Bank a single focus on inflation and not get caught up in house prices and other things that are a distraction as well. Third priority for us is law and order. And I've got Mark Mitchell coming tonight to do a law and order meeting in Claudelands at 6 p.m. if anyone is interested in attending that. So as an ex-dog handler, he's been at the forefront of shaping some of our policy. Because at National, we believe that there should be consequences for actions. If you fall short of the law, there should be consequences. Not ankle bracelets that just mean you continue to do the same thing on a catch and release basis and wreck the lives of your local business owners and communities so that they've got a bar up your shop. So one of the things we're doing is introducing a whole new category for youth offending from 10 to 15 years old. For the recidivist RAM raiders, and there's a RAM raid every 12 hours now in New Zealand, you would have heard a bit about our boot camp, and it gets a bit of flack from opposition and media, but it's a 12-month program where we physically remove these people out of their environment and put them in an environment where they can learn and get numeracy and literacy training, where they can have role models and discipline and get them job ready. And often by the time these kids have finished these courses, they actually don't want to go back home because for the first time in their life, they've been empowered and they've restored some of their mana. And also, in terms of, we're not just fixing or punishing, we've also very focused on rehabilitation. Most of the prison population, about 50%, is in remand, but there's no access to rehabilitation while they're in remand. So we're going to open up all those funding options for them as well. Just coming to a close, you would have, just quickly on health, you would have noticed our announcement for the Waikato Medical School to train 120 more GPs a year, and also we've got an incentive for nurses to stay in New Zealand by paying off their student loan. Ireland has 5 medical schools. We've got 2, and they're the same population size of us. Very quickly, it's coming to the election time, really encourage you to party vote National. I know New Zealand First are creeping up and they'll tell you to vote for them. But remember what happened in 2017 when you voted for New Zealand First? They didn't support National, and they haven't gone with National in 27 years. The safest thing you can do for a safe economy and a productive economy is to party vote National. Thanks for your time.
I'm going to get straight into things. Our 5 planks for New Zealand First are defending freedom, democracy, and fighting against racist agenda. Tackling the cost of living crisis, that's number 2. Create opportunity for all, that's number 3. Number 4, getting tough on rising crime. And number 5, and this is important, improving the lives of our seniors. I'm Kevin Stone, and I'm proud to be representing New Zealand First in the Hamilton West electorate. Some have said I'm in the wrong political party. Untrue. A political party with its name New Zealand First should resonate with all New Zealanders. We have a fantastic country with so much to be proud of, except our future. That is usually up to the government of the day, the one charged with running the country. Unfortunately, certain politicians have made decisions that have been detrimental to this country and especially its people. That has been one of the main reasons I have become involved in politics. At least I put my hand up to try and bring about changes. Changes our country desperately needs, otherwise more will be leaving their homeland. New Zealand First policies are more relevant today than ever before. They are based on our 15 principles, which were founded in 1993. Policies need to be updated at every election and change with changing times, but are formulated on those everlasting founding principles. You can see that they are deliberately broad in nature. Policy, on the other hand, is more specific. But there have been certain policies this party was founded on that have been taken from us. And we notice certain things with some people in government. A classic example of that is Labour saying all kinds of things and how they are taking New Zealand First policies and claiming them for their own. Immigration has also been a platform for New Zealand First. Remember when Winston Peters was called racist over this? What Winston Peters was saying, let's reduce our numbers of immigrants from a 50 to 60,000 a year to a more sustainable level like 10 to 15,000. And let's choose who can come here, no matter what their ethnicity is or background is, as long as they're going to be a benefit to this country. Ask yourself, was he right? Has our infrastructure coped? Hospitals, housing, roads, power, all seem to be under pressure, and with the state of our books from Treasury today, we just cannot keep on borrowing. The political environment is conducive for New Zealand First to be back in Parliament. Our vision for this nation requires you to seriously consider who to vote for. If my parents were alive today, I would be telling them that I am involved with New Zealand First. New Zealand First has to be back in this election. Our country is called New Zealand. I will be telling you what I will be doing. Although I won't be able to fix everything, no one can. I will support the youth. I'll support the seniors. I'll support our democracy and sovereignty. That is of paramount importance. I will support more funds for Pharmac. I'll support the Therapeutic Products Bill being replaced. I will support the changing of names of all government departments back to English and making English an official language. I will support a complete and independent inquiry in COVID-19. I will support the moving of ports of Auckland to Northport with its naval base. I'll support the ending of vaccine mandates, and we will also support people with compensation. I'll support a banking inquiry in New Zealand. I'll support the age of superannuation remains the same at 65. I'll support designating gangs as terrorists. I'll support policies based on need, not on race. Looks like I've been given the time, so I'm urging you, think seriously about your vote and party vote New Zealand First, and let's take back our country. Thank you.
Hello everybody, I'm very new to this. My name's Tanya Bann. I've lived my whole life in Hamilton.
And I still have my parents with me, which I'm very fortunate to have. They're both 83 years old, and they've both got opinions about everything. But they are like us. We never went to university, but we are tradies, okay? So my father has been in business all his life in Hamilton, okay? And I have also been in business in Hamilton as a hairdresser. I've actually also taught in the tertiary level, okay, about 15 years ago in Hamilton. What I found was back then, our young people were struggling to answer. We had literacy problems. So part of our policies with New Zealand Royal is to look at the education of our children. Because at tertiary level, when you start getting children or teenagers writing or answering test papers in their text language, we really have to address what's going on. New Zealand needs to have a comprehensive language overall, which is probably English, but also too, we have to understand and respect all the cultures of our country, and New Zealand in a te reo. I love that. I don't have a problem with that. I think a lot of people have, but it is part of our culture and it is part of New Zealand. I was brought up over on the east side mainly, so I spent 20 years over on this side, the west side of Hamilton, and I've spent 40 years on the other side of east side of Hamilton. That's why I'm representing right now. I went to Insole Primary School, I went to Fairfield Intermediate, I went to Melville Primary School, then we moved back over to Chartwell and I went to Hukanui Primary, I went to Fairfield Intermediate and I went to Fairfield College. It is the most diverse economic background in Hamilton, right in the middle. Right in the middle is where I am now too. So I'm getting to see people sitting on the streets asking for money. It has become really quite big. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of people struggling because there's a hairdresser and being in business. I've struggled. I've seen businesses closing. I see the lease signs up. Middle economy is being hit terribly hard. And I think that's filtered down into the bottom areas of our community. New Zealand Royal wants to pick everyone up in a massive way. And it has to be massive because we're heading to some very dark times. Absolutely. And so what we want to do, and probably a lot of you are going to think this isn't possible. I have to say that I've been to a city called Dubai overseas. They have a transactional tax. They use 5%. If you've ever been there, it is man-made opulence. The infrastructure is absolutely beyond your wildest dreams. Can't tell you enough about that. It's just overwhelming from New Zealand to go there and see that. It is huge. We are offering, and what we want to do is change our tax reform so it's beneficial to New Zealanders. We want to get in behind that we're going to do 1% transactional tax. What this means is every single institution in New Zealand will pay 1%. We will pay 1%, GST's gone, income tax is gone, everything. Last year's Reserve Bank, there were 3 billion and 3.55 billion transactions a day. 1% of that over a year. Okay, it adds up to quite a significant amount. So we can change the way that this happened, and this comes in underneath all of you. This comes right in and lifts New Zealand from the bottom up, not the top down. We're sick of it. I'm sick of it, and I'm sick of seeing it. Okay, we need to change the way New Zealand is. It needs a big change. And I hope that you can see that when you look at our policies on our website. We've got a great page. If you want to talk to us later, we can tell you when we go for that. It's all on our pamphlets outside. I want to address our farming community. Our farming community is really important, and we are also about our health. The Therapeutic Health Bill, that's part of our policy. Removing ourselves from the World Economic Forum and the UN because it's been infiltrated by people that are not elected. The World Economic Forum, the CEO Klaus Schwab, his father was part of running an ammunition factory in Germany during World War II. And if you don't know that, you need to know it. It took me 5 minutes to work it out online. That is why we have all these policies with smart cities, fluorides. While we can't get at our level anything done or changed because we have this very top coming down to our central government, and then it's being filtered down into all the Jada bars and all the emissions trading is all part of that. It doesn't address New Zealand's policies. We want to bring New Zealand up. Thank you for listening.
I'd like to thank Mr. Mumford for being open to direct democracy and inviting us here. And I'd like to thank the church and all Christians. How many Christians do we have here today? Wonderful. Believers in the Lord Jesus Christ. Yeah, so my name is Jack Gillen and I'm a pastor, counsellor, community worker. I'm a father of one child. I work with suicide prevention and also Families for Justice. Our first policy is united constitution, equal and human rights before the law, honouring the voice of the people. The Republic of New Zealand Party will champion freedoms and rights. We will uphold the freedom to have an opinion, express a view, and hold a belief, promoting open debate with the hate speech, law reform, or whatever they're bringing out. You can't express yourself anymore. Freedom, justice, and equality for all people is vital. Family law policy should guarantee the right to be a father and a mother. Also, a united constitution, real Republicans and patriots living for freedom, justice, and equality. Also, enshrining the treaty so we can apply its principles right across the board. Direct democracy, government as it should be. Judges should be answerable to the people. Binding citizens-initiated referenda with binding local and national initiatives is vital. The second policy that I would promote is cost of living. We have to break the cycle of inequities and intergenerational poverty. We have to be concerned about the future of our children who will suffer the consequences of our faulty decisions. Affordable housing, health costs, and good education are needed for youth development. We cannot live in an ivory tower with our snouts in the trough while everyone is suffering around us. We need to be committed to lowering inflation by empowering food growers to produce food that is affordable. Also, my third policy would be law and order. We need to see more bobbies on the beat and stop the revenue gathering. Police need to deal with the perpetrators of crime, ram raiders, gang violence, as well as white-collared crime people. The pressures of our life have become more intense, with stress and anxiety levels rising everywhere. We need to see neighbourhood watch groups and Kaitiaki Guardian officers arise to create safer environments everywhere. My fourth policy would be family restoration. Thriving families are the foundation of a strong nation. Our families in whānau are under intense pressure, financial stress, housing costs, food inflation, relational tensions, and mental health struggles create serious challenges which cost us $2 billion a year. We need to invest in whānau-centred policies to help relieve the stress, creating hope for a brighter future. My number 5 policy, farmers work tirelessly to feed our families. There needs to be a voice in Parliament to counter the government's resolve to reduce farming, destocking, farms converting pasture into forestry. We're stealing significant natural areas. Let's work together to support our farmers, as the work they do is very important to put food on our tables. My name is Jack Gillen, and I think families are so vital. Being the father of one son, we need to be concerned about our families, and also Families for Justice with our elderly people. We need to be elderly people for justice, and we need to reduce the major inequalities in our society here. So I'd like to thank you all for coming along today and give your vote to Jack Gielan with the Republic of New Zealand Party. Thank you very much.
Kia ora koutou, ko Aotearoa te wakainga, ko Taranaki te wakainga o ku tipuna, ko Waipa te turanga waiwai, tuku utamaru o Pirongia Maunga, ko Pākehā te iwi, ko Naomi Ahau. I'm Naomi Pocock, I'm standing for the Opportunities Party in Hamilton West, and I want to acknowledge everyone who's put on this event today. Thank you very much. I'm a lecturer part-time at the University of Waikato in sustainability. I've been an entrepreneur. I'm a Play Centre Life member. I'm the mother of 3 young boys. I'm the daughter of a dairy farmer and a teacher. But I'm not going to go on about myself today because we're here to talk about policy, and we're after your party vote for the Opportunities Party. So I want to talk to you about what the Opportunities Party stand for. Now, we're getting sick, as you probably are too, of the constant flip-flop between National and Labour. They're arguing, the bickering. And it's reflected in the number of small parties that we have here today that are trying to bring new policy to New Zealand. And I want to acknowledge all of my fellow candidates who are standing up for a better future for New Zealand, as I am. The difference, what the Opportunities Party want to bring in contrast is that we are willing to work with anybody to bring good policy to New Zealand. We look around the world and see what's working well. We adjust it for the New Zealand context. And all of our policies are future thinking. They're for your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, and future generations. Because we have a lot of disruption coming, and we really need to look after our youth. So to move to some of our policies, we have a teal card, which is like a gold card for under 30s. So this brings free dental, free optometry, free GP visits to under 30s. Free public transport. A rebate on e-bikes, e-scooters or bikes of $1,500 to try and get youth out of their cars and moving around our cities in more active ways. It includes a $5,000 savings boost when they turn 18 if they undertake civic service education for a course. So we're bringing policy for your children and your grandchildren. The second thing we want to do is to create a climate resilient New Zealand. So we would introduce the National Adaptation Plan, which is already there, ready to go, with urgency. We would also give biodiversity credits to farmers, so that when they plant out their land with native forestry, they get rewarded for that. And it would combat this constant planting out of pine trees across some of our most productive soil in New Zealand, which is devastating for the biodiversity. Our third policy, I'm just going to look at my notes, excuse me, is to rebalance the tax system. So at the moment, the burden of tax falls upon wage and salary earners and small businesses. And for decades, in fact since the 90s, both National and Labour have been advised by experts and inquiries galore to tax property, but they haven't. Now we would bring in a land tax, just the land, not what's upon it, so that incentivises the development of that land. Only rural, only residential, not rural because that's already productive land, not commercial because that's already productive land, just residential land tax, a very small amount, 0.075% of the value of the land each year. And that is a tax switch, so we would give that back to wage and salary earners, thank you, with a tax-free threshold. The fourth policy is early childhood education. So we want to pay the parents, not the corporates. So we're asking you today to think about what kind of legacy do you want to leave to your children and grandchildren. Do you want a political legacy of bickering, of left-right bickering, of extreme left-right bickering, and other types of extremism? Or do you want to leave a legacy of cohesive parties working together for solid policy for the future generations? If so, we're asking you to party vote the Opportunities Party top. Kia ora.
Tala Tato, Lois Dornan Aho, my name is Lois Dornan, Party Vote Freedoms New Zealand, Candidate Vote Vision New Zealand. I am a wife of one husband, 28 years. I know I look too young. When I get nervous, I tend to kind of joke because it just settles everyone. Mother of 5, 4 princes, 1 princess, and I have 3 grandbabies. Anybody got any grandbabies here? Yeah, they're our next generation. We've got a senior citizens policy. Actually, before I start with that, my mum's just turned 70. My mother actually lives with me. There's no other place that I would rather her be than with me. And so she lives with me and 3 of her grandchildren because I have older siblings. There is nothing more that I wouldn't do for my mum than have her live with me, that I can keep an eye on her, make sure she's safe, healthy, but she's still very independent. That lady drives all the way over to Tauranga all on her own, still at 70, and she's still living her best life. In 2034, we are expecting that there will be 1.2 million New Zealanders that are over 65. This has implications for our housing, employment, health, financial capacity and social issues. Therefore, to develop a culture in our society that applauds elderly people who want to remain in the workforce and create opportunities for the elderly to contribute and lead value-connected lives. Vision New Zealand will create a dedicated service provider hub for the services seniors need, so that those accessing support and help can be recognised as receiving an entitlement and not a benefit. It's your entitlement, it's not a benefit. Can I just also put out that we honour you as our elderly, so thank you for everything that you've done and that you continue to do. You're an important piece in our society. You hold our wisdom, you really do. Strong families build strong nations. Family is the cornerstone of society. The home and family are the place of origin, the incubator for normative behavioural values and morality, the socialisation of individuals and the foundation for intergenerational prosperity and well-being. Paying attention now to the health of families will secure a beneficial legacy to our nation and the power to affect the future in every way. None of my children have ever experienced being arrested, been in trouble with the law. They've never experienced drugs or gangs. I know I look Māori, but don't be confused because I also have Scots and Irish blood in me, so I'm pretty multicultural. And somewhere in our whakapapa, this German guy pops in. I don't know where he came from, but as fast as he popped in, he popped out. So we are for all people. My children are a testament to that. They are healthy, they're happy, and they thrive in their community. And that was possible because they had both parents in the home. They all have both parents. Mum and Dad are still working at the minute. We also have our own home business. We've been able to achieve that without the overreach of a government who thinks that they have the right to put their hands into our family. Well, let me tell you, we are a testament. My family is a testament that we don't need this government to overreach into our education system, into our health. My children very rarely see the doctors, and yet we've got a health crisis. We've got a health crisis where the wait times are ridiculous. And for our elderly, my mum has never spent a day in hospital because she's healthy. We promote healthy eating. We promote healthy exercise. Get out and walk. Vision New Zealand will put an end to the COVID-19 health response bill. Immediately remove all mandates for health and education workers for good and return these professionals back to the workforce. Vision New Zealand there needs to be an acknowledgement of vaccine injuries, a proper pathway to treatment, and appropriate support and compensation. We will order a thorough, unbiased inquiry into the vaccine injuries. One of my biggest and most favourite ones that I believe in is our law and order policy. Because we're talking about all these railways and all this trouble that's going on. Man up. Man up is the program for Aotearoa. Freedoms New Zealand is your party vote. Vision New Zealand is your candidate vote. Thank you for your time.
Well, everyone, still on, are we? We've got some exciting things to think about, haven't we? That's going to help us work out who will actually be representing us in October this year. The next phase is each candidate will be given 1 minute to answer what I hope is a simple question. It may sound complicated, but I hope we can achieve simplicity. All right? The first question, and we'll start from my right to left this time. The first question is on the subject of democracy. How are you going to listen to our community?
By listening to our community, actual listening.
Yes.
It's one thing to hear a thing, but it's another thing to listen and to put those into action.
The Opportunities Party has a big policy on democracy. We're very concerned about our democracy. Things like the amount of donations that these guys get versus Canada, for example, where there's a cap on donations of about $1,500 per citizen, and organisations can't donate to political parties. So we have a petition actually for an anti-corruption commission, because we look good, but we actually don't measure ourselves on the corruption standards. So we want an anti-corruption commission that will go in and actually look at the issues of our democracy. There were recommendations by the Electoral Commission in 2012, which National and Labour have both ignored. So we are big on democracy, the Opportunities Party. Kia ora.
Democracy as it should be. We should have binding national and local referenda. We should have democratic assemblies. And most of all our politicians need to walk a mile in our shoes, because I found the gap between where they're at and we're at is so broad. They need to listen to us. And like once they get in, they kind of shut down and they live in their ivory towers, making their money and everything else. But do they really listen to us? Because, you know, they need to visit the communities. How often do you see your local politician? You know, politicians in the beehive. So it's time for that all to change with national binding, national, local and binding referenda, and also democratic assemblies where we listen to the voice of the people. Thank you.
New Zealand Royal is very much about democracy. We are not going to be politicians, we are going to be representatives. Liz has made that very, very clear. And what we want to do is we want to actually work out an area where we can address people. We're going to call it the town hall. And it will be on TV, that will be what we would do, okay? And what we will do is we will encourage people to watch it 10 minutes every night of the week, where we can actually address some of these things. We'll bring some of our people in, and we will be asking people to drop in information via either app or email. Because we want people to know that we are there for them. We are so sick of hearing everything that is not happening. Okay, we get told all this stuff and it never happens. We are actually putting ourselves, we're people that have just walked off the street well, not walked off the street, but, you know, we're being concerned about the politics of New Zealand, and we haven't been listened to, absolutely not. So that is what New Zealand Law, we're going for party vote, and I'm going the Hamilton East candidate, Tani Bang.
Democracy. That rings so much to me. Democracy is so important. for this country. We are nationalists. New Zealand First is a nationalist party. We don't want other countries or people involved in politics in New Zealand destroying that fabric of democracy. It is crucial. And if you don't party vote for whoever you want to this year, right, this country is going to be declining down. Democracy is at the forefront of our New Zealand First Party. It is crucial. If we don't get this right, God help New Zealand.
Thanks. I'll try and answer from a candidate's perspective. How would I listen to the community? I think the key is being accessible. I've been a Hamilton City Councillor for 5.5 years and I've always been accessible. In fact, I like to think now politicians are more accessible than ever with mobile phones and emails. If I was your successful candidate at Hamilton East, obviously I'd have an office, and like David Bennett before me, was very accessible, would attend public events. I think the key is also listening. Doesn't mean we're always going to agree, but everyone has the right to be heard. And I've been quite stand up about turning up at events and hearing from public I may not agree with, but I've got a duty to represent all people and hear from all people. Thank you.
A number of initiatives come to mind. So Labor believes in evidence-based policy. We also hold referenda when they are called for. So we did hold a couple at the last election. But I do believe that it comes down to politicians who are from their communities, who live in their communities, and who are committed to their communities, win or lose, whether they win or lose a by-election or an election, that they are committed to them. Attending local events. I'm at the Frankton Markets every Saturday morning. Being available to come to any community houses and check out what they're doing in the community is important. Making submissions and listening to submissions. There is a retirement village sector reform underway at the moment, initiated by this government. You can have a say on that. You can make a submission to Parliament. You can do that by the 20th of November. Written, oral, one of both of them. So by listening to people's submissions on bills, we can listen to the population directly. We can do it by investing in education and civics education, and more than anything by being open-minded. And I believe I am open-minded. So kia ora, thank you.
Greetings. The ACT Party listens to people in three main ways. We have candidates in almost every electorate. I run drop-in and online meetings every week and people use them. It's great. Some people bring submissions and these are sent off to our policy team. We run a thing called the Heartland Tour every year. This has been going for several years, where we go out to small communities, large communities, and we listen to what people have to say. And our policies are driven by the people that we have met and listened to. We also listen to the submissions that come to us. I must admit, where I think it's important we have input, I go and visit people. Visited the Nurses Association. They said I was the first political party in this region to ever come and talk to them about their concerns about workload. So we have very clear ways of listening, and we're open to listen to absolutely everybody. In terms of democracy, I think we all need to face two realities. The New Zealand government has actually signed agreement to the United Nations Declaration for Human Rights and the treaty. We believe we need to honour the equality that is stated in both of these documents and have integrity as a government and a nation.
Thank you everyone for... Am I live again? I am. Thank you everyone for your response to that. There's a phrase I'd like you to think about going forward, and that's the phrase called Citizens Assembly. It's an area that I think we need to explore more and have lots of discussion on, to think about how we can better engage the people with those who are making decisions. The second question is on the subject of affordable living. Funny that, eh? We all know it. We see it every day in the newspaper. Everyone's talking about it. We hear stories of a woman who was unable to pay her electricity bill So what did the power company do? Disconnect her, which I guess is okay. However, they sent her a bill for disconnection. This woman then said, okay, all right, fair enough. I will save up and I will earn some money. I'll put some money aside. I'll sacrifice all these things over here in order to get my electricity put back on again. So she saved up sufficient money to reconnect. What did the power company do? Send her a bill for reconnection. Now, the Electricity Commission is actually looking at that, but that's a symptom of the problem of affordable living and the consequence of our economic times today. So we know that prices of food are skyrocketing. A bloke who boards with us bought an item for $5.60 last week, $6.20 this week, the same item. And we're talking about, 7%? Yeah, right. Anyhow. So the question we've got, and this is a personal question, not a party question, okay? And so you need to give some thought to it. What's your plan to take this into a fixed solution? Because it's not. This is you operating as a candidate within your party, influencing the party to improve this particular question. Okay? Go for it.
This is a great question. I recently went to the Women's Expo at Claudelands, and people came up and talked to me all through that weekend. I remember someone saying to me, my groceries have gone up 26%. Why do you think that is? Well, I said, let's start examining why that is. Most of us got to the point where the only protein we could afford to buy was eggs, and what happened? They went up 68%. Why did they go up 68%? Because egg farmers were forced to actually move to free-range egg farming. Now, that's a worthy goal, but we didn't need to do it now. So most of the things that are putting up production and cost of living for you are directly due to government legislation and regulation. Another young man running a store said to me, do you know what happened to me? I started selling watercress. I started a little business selling watercress. First thing that happened is I was told I had to pay $2,500 to become a registered grower, and then I had to pay another $2,000 plus a year to be inspected. Now this is solving a problem that doesn't exist. Do you know anyone who's died of watercress poisoning? It's nonsense.
Labor is doing a lot in the cost of living space, and we recognise that there is a cost of living crisis. We are doing a number of things. We are increasing benefits and increasing your superannuation. Under the 6 years of Labor, a couple's super has gone up by $326.68 per fortnight since 2017. So we're increasing super, we're increasing wages. Wages are growing faster than inflation. For that reason, Labor is committed to indexing benefit increases to wage increases. That will create bigger benefit increases, bigger super rises than National Act. They will index to rate of inflation. And at the moment, wages are growing faster than inflation. We will take GST off fruit and vegetables to make them cheaper for you. We have a grocery commissioner who is going to make sure that the supermarkets pass on the savings to customers. We have a market inquiry into banking. The Commerce Commission is investigating why Aussie banks are ripping off New Zealand customers. 20% more profits out of their New Zealand customers than their Aussie customers. My time is up. A minute goes fast, doesn't it?
All right, 1 minute. Quickly, there's two parts to your question, right? Some of it is party related. The shifting of the tax bracket straight away gives Kiwis $1,000 more in their hand a year to do what they want. The Labor government was warned about removing interest deductibility on rental properties. Average rents have gone up $175. That's something we'll be reversing straight away. There's about 3,000 empty homes in Hamilton because landlords are too afraid to put tenants in. And they're Airbnb-ing them, and a whole bunch of unintended consequences, which is having an effect on the affordability spectrum. On a personal note, I've done a lot of work with the Waikato Regional Housing Initiative, which is an exemplar organisation trying to create affordability on the spectrum. So you've got emergency housing, social housing, subsidised rental, private ownership, and we need to address all those different elements because it's actually not about just affordable home ownership, it's about security of tenure and affordability of living. And the ideal is actually to get your housing costs to 30% of your income. Now they sit at around 60 or 70%. So that is the challenge.
Affordability. That conjures up quite a lot, doesn't it? Affordability. Because some people can afford things and some people can't. And the way New Zealand is going, the poverty is coming in and people can't afford things now. We all know that. But it's not just pertinent to New Zealand. It's right throughout the world now. And I'll tell you what, there's a lot of manufacturers that need to be scolded for some of what they're doing. You know, little soap, packets of soap. You must have those now. You open them up and they've all been chipped. There's about a third being cut off and the price is still the same. Manufacturers, right? They're to blame too. They're all trying to make money. Everybody is nowadays. And so you've got to try and do anything to create a good standard of living. Go out and get more jobs if you're able to, of course. Us retired people, we're not able to do that. Some are infirm. We can't go out and get another job. So we've got to try and get a government that is going to be fair across the board.
The reason I'm standing here is because I have been in business. A third of my income was spent on tax. That's what you have to pay in New Zealand for business. The other third was stock and the last third was wages. That's how it works. That's how it stacks up. And at the end of every year, I had to pay income tax. Where did that money come from? Usually went to overdraft that year to pay for it. Now, what I'm saying with New Zealand Royals policy, and the reason I love it so much, is 1% is simple. It's across the board. We're going to drop GST, we're going to drop PAYE. It can be done because it's already been proven to have been done. The banks will be paying the transactional tax as well. So when I say every institution, all those industries and businesses that write off or they pay their big lawyers to write off everything, they will also, or accountants, will also be paying, these big places will be paying 1%. That is not too much to ask. They are the ones at the top that are getting all the money, but they also need to feed it down and give people the opportunity and put the money back in their pockets. That's what we think.
I see a huge problem with the corporations, and the first thing I would do would regulate the prices in all the supermarkets, because they're really out of control. And also with the rents and the affordable houses, people can't afford the rents anymore, so they need to be regulated and controlled from the top. Also, when it comes to my own private life, I believe in growing my own gardens. I think that's very important. And also with the pharmaceuticals bill, they're going to stop us growing our own herbs and interfere with the town that Maori have with their own medicinal plants and this sort of thing. Yeah. So a vote for Jack Gillen is a vote for regulating everything from the top in terms of affordable houses and so forth. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou. First, I just want to say that since 2017 we have advocated for a citizens' assembly, and sorry I didn't mention that before, but like my colleague, I was a little bit nervous about going first. I'm only human, so citizens' assembly democracy is big for the Opportunities Party. And on affordable living, personally, I would continue to advocate for the universal basic income. It is affordable. We have worked out ways to pay for it. We're socially and environmentally responsible party and also fiscally responsible. And so the universal basic income is a bit like superannuation for everyone, $1,375 per month per adult. And it replaces benefits so that when people work, they get to keep their money and they don't have to pay a whole lot back to the system. And it helps small businesses because they're not burdened by the minimum wage going up all the time. And so and it helps parents because it enables parents to have more choice around spending time with their children, which is what all children need. Kia ora.
I'll be honest, I'm not very savvy in this area, but we've got people in our team that are, but I'm going to give it a go. How about getting rid of a lot of the unworkable regulations that they've placed upon our farmers who are just wanting to get out there and give us our kai? I'm a meat girl. Don't take my meat away, leave our farmers alone. Unworkable regulations to our farmers is not a good thing for our kai. And also, all the processed kai is not good for us anyway. Why would you want to buy it? It just makes you sick. As far as housing, we've got 100,000 homeless people. And we've got 90,000 homes in Aotearoa that are sitting empty. There's no logic in that, but they're all trying to hurry up and make new homes when there are empty homes that could be used to house our homeless. Because being in a hotel is not a home. Living in a car and having a roof over your head, that doesn't count. Let's go and find those homes and put those people in them. Thank you.
Well, I hope the answers to that simple question helps. The next item, and I don't know whether I'll give a bit of background. And the interesting thing is all these questions and the answers actually don't even relate to us. It's all about those who follow us, our children, our grandchildren, and our great-grandchildren. So we're trying to provide a better environment today, not for us, but for those who are following. Okay? One of the scary things that's going on is the area of housing. Our house we bought for $410,000 9 years ago. Someone decreed that it should now be 1.1 million. And you say, well, yeah, but who's going to benefit from that? Not me. I'm going to be dead. And I guess then others will squabble as to who's going to get it. And then there's also the talk about taxing, the death tax and that sort of stuff. But the scary thing is that those who are following us and those who are following them, on the rate of change that's happening in the housing affordability market, are not going to be able to afford one. So we're going to end up very much like Europe, where the majority live in rented accommodation. That now means that their financial situation is now totally out of control. They cannot control that because the consequence of them not paying their rent is they get kicked out. And I'll be seeing some of that today. I suspect we are. So again, this is a personal question, guys. We've done the party thing. That's a little story that I'd like you to think about. And how, given that story, what influence do you think you can have in this, and the message that you're going to give your party in order to improve the situation? Okay?
My family we benefited from an organisation called Habitat for Humanity. We were the 100th family here in Hamilton who received the Habitat for Humanity home. I would like to push for that to come to pass here in Aotearoa, as it gave us the stepping stone to home ownership. But what it also did was we were allowed to have our children come and be a part of building our home, which then puts in a pride that this is ours, we built this, and they looked after it. We're now in our second brand new home, but you know, I'd love to see that happen, because the reality is my children are probably not going to be able to afford their own home unless mum and dad, which we're working towards. We're working towards this. So we've got 5 kids to house. There's no better feeling than having your own home and knowing that no landlord can come kick us out. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou. The Opportunities Party, the cost of housing is the greatest, or the most fundamental one of our policies. Now, I personally am a property investor. I own rentals, and I charge well below the market rent for my tenants, because I think it is disgusting the way that the prices have gone up for them. And it used to be that we charged an extra maybe $20, $30 a year in rent. Now it's like bang the rent up by $100, $150 overnight. And that is not on for our renters. And so I would advocate for a break on the increase in rents while the market stabilises, while we implement all these other policies that I talked to you about before. Because we are a party that looks across the system and implements policy at multiple areas. We're not a one-liner PR politics type party. We look at the fundamentals and we go, what needs to be fixed at the fundamental level? And that's what we stand for. Kia ora.
I think it's disgusting that a lot of the politicians have 2 or 3 houses, and a lot of the people, like, you know, with families, are sleeping in cars, and a lot of them are getting sick and everything else. Providing affordable housing, to me, is a no-brainer. It should be a top priority, and I think that the sooner the governments resolve this, the better. You know, how many thousands of people are there that don't have their own homes? And we should get rid of the red tape with the council. We should stop being greedy about it, how much homes going up and up and up, or we end up like, you know, everybody we're renting over in Europe. So it's time that we really focus hard on providing affordable homes and producing thousands of homes in different areas throughout New Zealand.
My granddaughter has been to 9 different schools because she lives in a rental with my daughter. For one reason or another, either they couldn't afford it, or the family were coming back from overseas, or they were going to sell it, what have you. So at the moment, they're on my house, and my daughter's sleeping on a mattress behind my sofa. I want her to be in a home. I want my grandchildren to be in a home. I think it is the prerogative of all New Zealanders to be able to do that. I want this, when we wipe out the PAYE, and I totally believe in this, I'm 100%. If you can get rid of that PAYE, minimum wage, $22.70, I think it is an hour, okay, at 40 hours a week, that is $908. Okay, no PAYE, you own that. You have bigger pockets that you can actually address that. You don't pay 15% or take GST off justice or just that. It is across the board. Thank you.
What is an affordable home nowadays? Is it 400,000? 500,000? What is an affordable home? All these questions come to us because the standard of living has certainly increased in some areas and declined in others. But that there is the affordable part. We can afford things sometimes, and sometimes we're unable to. Immigration, that is one of the major strictures with affordable homes. Immigration, we've got 100,000 people coming in this year. 96,000, I think it is to be accurate. Where are they going to live? That's what's pushing all these prices up. Immigration, and it's not only with housing, it's all the concerns that everybody has. Health, roading, crime, it all comes back to immigration. Thank you.
So I'll answer the question that Ray's asked from a personal perspective. So there's a few things, and I get to sort of continue from the first part of the conversation. The last question is the housing spectrum. So one thing I've had the privilege of doing as part of council is, for example, if rural zoned land, say it's worth $100 and it becomes residential and becomes $1,000, and of course that huge price increase then gets passed on to the homeowner. What we're looking to do as part of council is something called inclusionary zoning. So as zoned land changes, the homeowner has to share some of that benefit with a community lands trust or a housing provider, rather than just pass it on and everyone pays inflated prices. That's a key part. And also the community lands trust, where the land is taken out of the equation. Someone has home ownership, but they can get in at $300,000-400,000 and they gain CPI on the above ground bill, but the land, it's like the peppercorn lease, stays in the trust for perpetuity. So that's the sort of thing that I'll be advocating for, is multi-pronged approaches to help different people in the spectrum, and it's a ladder of progression, but that way everyone can have a chance of secure home ownership.
I'm a renter, a long-time renter, and I can't afford to buy a house in Hamilton. I spoke to an audience of the Waikato Property Investors Association a few nights ago, and I spoke to people who own 40 rentals, and they were complaining about why the government is stopping them from getting interest deductibility on their rentals. This government has stood up for renters. This government, when I got evicted, and I got evicted from my tenancy in April because the owner wanted her house back, Labor extended the period for me to find my own home, a new home, from 42 up to 63 days. Labor has protected renters' rights by getting rid of no-cause evictions. National and ACT have promised to bring back no-cause evictions. That will mean that every of the 1.4 million renters in New Zealand, including me, will be at the whim of property managers and landlords, waiting to be evicted for no reason, because that is what property investors want, and that is what National and ACT have promised to deliver to them. If you care about renters, you need to party vote Labor and vote for me as your candidate. I will fight for renters' rights.
From a personal point of view, I think there is one key to actually having your own home, and it's something that I'm very lucky my parents taught me. It's called working hard. And my parents contributed nothing to my housing. I will tell you that I bought my first home when I was 26 years old. It was a complete dump. It was not livable in, and I lived in it, and I did that house up and made it habitable for other people to buy at a reasonable cost. And that is really what most property investors do. Many of them are mums and dads who are doing up property. In Hamilton, we have 250 buildings that have been zoned as earthquake hazards. Now, if we could work with the regulation and remove some red tape, those could all become accommodation. But we've got so much red tape we can't do it. When I look at my 2 grandchildren, the only way they will get a home is for their family to work together behind them.
Well, we're moving to the end of this phase. I think there's also a little parable that goes with this topic as well for us all to think about. And that is the Chinese. The old Chinese, how did they live? They lived in a feature called hongs. And in the hong, which happened to be a stone wall complex, had a number of dwellings in this complex. And the family lived in there, young ones supporting the old ones, the middle ones going out there and working, probably in the farm or the garden. But it was a self-supporting, sustainable environment. Yet here in New Zealand and elsewhere, we've chosen to isolate people into a box somewhere, and we move them from box to box. And I just wonder whether we've done ourselves a disservice and whether in fact there is a better model that we could think about and implement as part of our urban planning process. So anyhow, on that small little idea, again, I'd like to thank you for being here, but I've got